Hello, everybody. My name is Victor Martinez, and today we're going to be talking about the Spanish crown. We're going to start with some prefatory remarks, then the monarchical history of Spain, the Spanish constitution, social analysis, financial aspects of the crown, the political context of Spain, steps towards change if needed, insights, and importance of my research. So let's start with the prefatory remarks. Spain's governmental system is a parliamentary monarchy. Spain's history is much older than what is analyzed here. I only focus on the monarchical history of it, starting from the Catholic monarchs, and different dynasties or houses have ruled. All right, the monarchical history. Ferdinand II and Isabella I, also known as the Catholic monarchs, unified Spain in 1479 with their marriage. They belonged to the House of Trastamara. Their daughter, who was Joanna the Mad, couldn't rule because of her disease, so her son, who was Charles I, ruled for her. He belonged to the House of Habsburg, which ruled for almost 200 years. At the end of the dynasty, Charles II couldn't produce offspring. He had a very rare disease. So Philip V became king, and he belonged to the House of Bourbon. This number one means that it was the first time that they appeared in history. As you can tell, they appear 4 times in total. All right. During the continuation of the Bourbon dynasty, well, at the end of this first time that it appeared, um, Napoleon asked the current king of Spain, which was Ferdinand VII, to let his army cross Spain in order to attack Portugal. Ferdinand agreed, but despite the Napoleon promises, um, the French never withdrew from Spanish territory, and at the end, it just led to a war. At the end, Napoleon appointed his brother, Joseph Bonaparte, to become king of Spain, but his reign didn't last long, and at the end he was overthrown, and Ferdinand VII got his throne back. During the continuation of the House of Bourbon, at the end of the second time that they appeared, there was a war of succession, which was won by Isabella II. She lost popularity quickly and eventually exiled to France, and this led to 2 years without a monarch. Now, this character, he's Amadeo I, and he belonged to the House of Savoy. He was elected by Congress, which is something very interesting after those 2 years, but he then resigned after a very short time, stating that Spain was impossible to govern. This led to the First Spanish Republic, which only lasted 1 year. The government eventually collapsed, and a parliamentary monarchy was again established. Alfonso XII was next in throne, so he became king, and his son, who was Alfonso XIII, well, during his mandate, tensions were very high because of national conflicts, and at the end, a plebiscite was held in order to decide if Spain should become a republic or not. Most people voted in favor of that, and the Second Spanish Republic was established. During the Second Spanish Republic, the Spanish Civil War started, eventually won by the nationalists, which were headed by Francisco Franco. During his mandate, he established the Spanish state, which is basically a beautiful word of describing a dictatorship. And he ruled Spain until his death in 1975. During his life, he mentored and trained Juan Carlos I, which is here, to become king after his death and follow his steps, so maintain Spain as a Spanish state. After Franco's death, Juan Carlos decided not to do that and decided that Spain deserved a parliamentary monarchy. So this period of time is called the transition era because Spain was transitioning from a dictatorship to a parliamentary monarchy. He abdicated in 2014, Juan Carlos I, and now the current king of Spain is Felipe VI, which is here on the right. All right, let's talk about the Spanish Constitution. It was ratified in 1978, and almost 90% of Spaniards voted in favor of that. And it consists of 10 main sections, which in the Constitution are called títulos or titles. This that I put here, it was the constitutional referendum of 1978, and it was propaganda in order to get people to vote for the Constitution. And coming from a dictatorship, it was seen as something incredibly democratic to to have some type of voice in what should be decided. That's why 90% of Spaniards voted in favor of it. All right, let's talk about the Title II, which refers to the crown. And Article 56.1 basically shows and explains that the king is the head of state. It is a symbol for unity and permanence. And his role is to arbitrate Spain and represent Spain everywhere he goes. In Article 62, his functions are developed, and he can veto and promulgate laws, call and dissolve for Congress, call elections and referendums, propose a candidate for the presidency, be informed of affairs of state, and command the army. And here, by the way, this is Juan Carlos I when he was ratifying the Constitution. All right, the social analysis. Nowadays, the monarch's role is symbolic, but still, as the Constitution says, the king represents Spain and its citizens. But his social role has diminished, especially because of some scandals that were involved with the crown, especially during Juan Carlos' era, and this led to an increase in Republican movement in Spain. Republican meaning that they wanted to get rid of the king. Now, let's talk about different point of views in the social aspect. There is the conservative point of view, which defends the monarchical institution because of religious reasons, as sometimes the king is seen as divine. Others because they simply respect the Spanish institution and they think that they should not be changed. And also because they simply, or others because they simply see importance in the king's role. Then we have the liberal point of view, which they want to dismantle this institution and install the third republic because it is the monarchy is undemocratic, costly, archaic, and unnecessary. Now there is the majority of Spaniards fall into this middle ground, which basically they do not care about it. They do not care about politics, and especially they do not care about the king, since it doesn't play a big role in their everyday life. So they do not take any of the other sides. All right, let's talk about the financial aspects. It is almost impossible to analyze the financial what we can attribute to the king of what comes to Spain and what Spain's provide to the economy because it is very complicated. So determining the percentage of the budget is almost impossible. And so what we can do is analyze the cost of the monarchy. And in Article 65, it says that the king receives a budget, well, a state budget every year to decide what money needs to be attributed to this institution. All right, some numbers. Since 2018, the budget for the royal family was almost 8 million euros. In 2021, this budget was raised to 8,431,000, which is about $10 million. The annual salary of the king this year is 2,053,850 euros. The annual salary of the queen is 139,610 euros. And the predicted Spanish budget for 2021 is $655 million. And the nominal GDP for this year is $1,450.88 billion. If we compare this to other monarchies, we can see that Spain is pretty cheap. For example, if we look at England's monarchy, its cost is $113 million, when the Spanish one was like almost $10, $10 million, sorry, not $10. It is then followed by Monaco, the Netherlands, Norway, Belgium, Denmark, and Luxembourg, all ahead of Spain. So almost any other monarchy that is in Europe is more expensive than the Spanish one. So key takeaways that I want to make clear. The Spanish monarchy is not expensive, and it actually makes up less than 2% of the Spanish budget, and even a less number, and even a smaller percentage of the GDP. All right, now we're gonna move on to the political context. The king's political role is impartial, and it is impartial as stated in the Constitution, and also as Felipe VI said, its political neutrality enables it to contribute to the stability of our political system. Even though that is said, it is understandable that the king is gonna support political parties that do not want to get rid of the monarchical institution. That being said, the Republican movement is growing stronger every day, as we stated earlier. All right, the right-wing parties on the issue. We have two in Spain. One is Vox, and the other one is People's Party, or PP. They call for the preservation of the monarchical institution. On the left, we have Podemos, which translates to United We Can, and they call for the progressive dismantling of the monarchical institution. And the moderate sides are, we have two parties that fall in that category. The PSOE, as we pronounce it, which is the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, and Ciudadanos, citizens. Right now, the current government is composed by PSOE, ruling with a coalition with Podemos, which was this one. All right, steps towards change. So what if we were to change it? What if Podemos had a bigger role in the government and motions to change this were brought up to the Cortes Generales, which Cortes, whenever I talk about Cortes, I'm talking about the Congress. There are only two ways of getting rid of the monarchy. It's amending the constitution or writing a new one. Historically, a new one has been written because a major crisis happened, and to be honest, changing the constitution, um, well, changing just the title two of the constitution, which is the crown, would also mean changing almost all of them, because it is it's slowly it is progressively explain the king's role in almost every title. All right, so we're going to talk about the diplomatic terms for essential reform. Diplomatic, I mean, because I'm not considering the case of a constitutional crisis or a major war that happens that calls for a change that big. So we have to follow Article 168, which, uh, first of all, the amendment that we propose, which in this case it will be getting rid or changing the monarchical institution, will have to be approved by 2/3 majority of each house. Then the Cortes Generales, the Congress, are completely dissolved, and now new houses are elected, and it must again be approved by a 2/3 majority. And then the amendment is submitted for referendum, meaning that people get to vote on it. So is a republic possible? The answer is yes, but not at the moment. The Republican movement, it is growing every day, but it is not as strong to convince 2/3 of each house twice. Another key point that I want to point out is that propaganda against republicanism has been present since 1939, since the end of the Second Republic and Civil War. Because during Franco's mandate, a lot of propaganda was pushed in order to um, to show how a republic, a third republic, will be horrible for Spain. Now, the third key point that I want to point out is that steps to to change the governmental systems are very long, because the constitution was created in order to protect this system. And of course, a constitutional crisis does not seem imminent. The bullet point number four says that the crown is not necessary for the function of state, but the roles granted to this institution are, and that is a very important point. And number five, yes, as always, the argument has been politicized, therefore making it much harder to find any middle ground between the left, the right, and even the middle ground. To conclude, the monarchy is not of extreme importance in Spain, and Spain has other matters to focus on, like unemployment rates, which almost reached the 20%. Also, the global pandemic, of course, and political corruption, which has been present in the last years. And a structural change this size is unlikely to happen anytime soon. All right, the importance of my research. So Europe has influences basically every continent. So, and understanding Europe and understanding one of the main pillars of Europe, which is a monarchy, is very important in order to understand any society. Spain has also had a particular influence in America, and an objective analysis of this leaves a room open for the reader or the viewer to answer the question of what should we do about the king? What do you think it needs to be done? And understanding the roots, reasons, and the future of the Spanish monarchy is necessary to understand democracy in today's world. These are the photos I used, and that was all. Thank you so much for your attention.